What industry is a lot more dark and sinister than most people realize? I thought working at a local flower shop would be rosy and idyllic until I was told to upsell grieving widows on already overpriced casket sprays. This is far too true. My wife is a floral designer at a large florist. She went in thinking, yay, play with flowers and make pretty stuff all day, and it is definitely not that most of the time. Sorry for your loss, that'll be $1,600. The tomato industry. I went to a lecture for extra credit in college on the history of the tomato. I was expecting to hear how people used it and where people started growing them and whatnot. What I got was essentially a full season of The Sopranos. Extortion, murder, blackmail, vandalism, you name it, the tomato industry was rife with the worst shit. I am in the produce industry. This is the worst, dirtiest, sleaziest group of filth I've ever worked with. Look into avocados, literal cartels are starting to get into the industry because we need our guacamole on game day. Fucking nursing homes. I didn't think the worst part of EMS would be learning how most nursing homes in my area treat their patients. But it is. By far. How long has this been going on? Oh. Since about 12 o'clock. She's been seizing for 8 hours? She's not my patient. Just got here actually. I call it the nursing home trifecta. Not my patient, just got here, fine 5 minutes ago. After just a few months as a paramedic, I straight up told my parents they'd be better off ODing on Oxy rather than ending up in one of those hellholes. I fucking hate temp agencies. They should honestly in some form be made illegal. It doesn't make any sense why someone should be doing the same job at a temp agency for longer than a year. At that point your employment is not temporary in nature. I used to work for an employer that made liberal use of temp agencies to fill vacant positions. Some people were temps for 3 to 5 years, all the while getting paid less, and getting no benefits, than the full-timers who were doing the same job. I suffered through one of those a while back for a factory job. They also made it practically impossible to take time off. Then they put a bunch of fees on your paycheck. I was supposed to be making $10 an hour, but after all the fees they took from me, I might as well have been making $6 an hour. This will get buried, but the aquarium industry is awful. The amount of death and fish we just throw away would shock you. On top of that, so many shops sell fish to people who are not set up properly to take care of the animal. I agree. I did saltwater fish and reptile sales at an LFS. The amount of animals that die in shipping alone is staggering, but most pets are sold into homes that cannot afford proper care. I lived in a college town and kids would blow student loan money on exotic pets then abandon them. I knowingly sentenced countless animals to death by selling bare minimum requirements to house special needs animals. It's dark and pet store owners are truly evil people. Gambling. However sinister you think it is. It's more than that. I've seen people literally enslaved and sold to human trafficking rings for failing to pay their debts to loan sharks. If there is one vice I'd make illegal, that's gambling. Like, seen literally? Are you in law enforcement or? Way, gambling? Nah, the street I used to live on until last year was literally casino after casino. I used to know a lot of people there, employees, clients and gangsters. One night, coming from work, I saw a guy in front of a casino severely beaten by 2 big guys and one was yelling, "Until you pay what you owe, you're my B." I later learned that the guy was last seen with the big dude on cameras in Gallipoli. And the big dude bragged about selling him. Another time I saw another guy being slapped around in front of a casino by another guy. And I overheard him telling the other guy that his house is not enough to cover the debt. He'll have to find work for him to pay his loan. Edit, just so I don't get spammed with more messages about why I didn't call the cops. I chose my own safety. Sorry I'm not the hero you expected me to be. I'm going to say finance, but not for the reason most people think. I work in trading, and my colleagues are some of the smartest people on the planet. Former chemists, physicists, virologists, aerospace engineers, statisticians, materials scientists, and etc. They all get burnt out barely able to keep their research going and being for grant money, then they get recruited into financial firms to do the same kind of work they enjoy but get paid 10x or even 100x. They don't have to deal with customers, and they see direct indicators of the quality of their work. Finance takes people who could be changing the world for the better, and once they cross the event horizon there's no going back. The other half of the problem is how difficult it is to get funding for research to improve the world, but finance is the black hole from which there is no escape. Big tech is guilty of this as well. Some of the brightest minds in the US are being paid ridiculous amounts of money to work at places like Facebook. Surprised I've not seen charity sector. Funding fraud, mistreatment and underpayment of staff and focusing more on PR than actually doing anything of substance are commonplace. The charities that raise awareness can go suck on a large sack of shit. Recently a charity did a fun run to aid breast cancer in my local area. My aunt, whose daughter died of breast cancer, ran it, hoping the money she raised would be useful to someone. She raised a modest $5,000 herself, and the event overall raised another $55,000. Turned out the charity the money went to was only for awareness, with 5% actually going to help charities that deal with supporting people with breast cancer. Most of the money went to fund the event and the board of directors, who took a 40% cut of the proceeds themselves. Elder care, and the care industry in general. The entire assisted living industry is so predatory. They'll help you reverse mortgage your home to pay for care, effectively stealing your kids' inheritance away from them under the facade that you're getting great care. You'll pay $10,000 to $15,000 a month in my area to be ignored until you die. Hey, there's a bunch of corporate art in the hallways though, and snack bars available at the front counter anytime you want, so you've got that going for you. Which is nice. My grandma is 97 and is on home hospice. I take care of her for the most part, but people from the hospice company come a few times a week to help out. One of the things the hospice company offers is a respite period. Every few months we can take grandma to a 24-hour care facility for a few days. I was very hesitant at first, but grandma wanted to see what it would be like to stay there. She stayed there for 5 nights and they were supposed to give her medication a total of 10 times. When I got her home I realized they forgot to give her medication 4 times, once in the morning and 3 times in the evening. At her age and the medications she's on, that could have been dangerous. If it was happening to her, it for sure was happening to others. NCAA athletics. Worked for 10 years in college football and it's insane what goes on and what people don't see. All people see is the coaches who make millions of dollars. They are the 1% of the top 1%. The biggest kept secret in the business is the way schools skirt around fair wage and labor laws to exploit young people trying to coach. They have contracts that call young coaches interns, which allows the school to only pay them $10,000 a year or less, but you will work upwards of 70 to 80 hours a week, which includes weekends. I have been advocating for this practice to be outlawed for a very long time and is the main reason I left the profession. You get worked to death and make zero money to do it. Please realize the coaches you see on TV and the salaries you hear about are literally the peak of the profession. It would be like comparing the CEO of Google's salary to the owner of a small coffee shop salary. Next time you watch a college football game, look at the sheer amount of staff members on the sideline and remember that there are only 10 salaried assistant coaches allowed on staff. Now think of the thousands of coaches that coach college ball at the D3 and D2 level that aren't even on TV. The NCAA needs to step up and mandate fair pay and stop the exploitation. Real estate. I'm a copywriter for a US real estate corporation and can't wait to get the fuck away from them. Disgusting industry. But right now I need to pay my bills. It's kind of weird how used car salesman is the foremost negative salesperson stereotype when real estate agents are out there being every bit as shady and dealing with much higher dollar amounts. Childcare. I work with people who are straight dumb, some who are mean, and the well-meaning get burnt out. And your child isn't always safe from other children because there's really nothing we can do about bad behavior. They might get bit, and like there's nothing I can do about it but write up a report and scold the kid. And they'll get bit again. Low pay, low support, lack of adequate training for any kids who fall into neurodivergence, lack of supplies, no time/space/room for one-on-one care, high turnover. School up the street is in the middle of a police investigation. Detectives are involved. Research the center hard before placing your kid there. Higher education. It's become all about the dollars. Colleges took a major financial hit over the COVID years. To make up deficits, they're doing some very shady shit to get enrollment and retention back up to fill seats and collect money. They're doing things like 1. Recruiting standards have fallen through the floor, attracting students who have no business in college in the first place. 2. Institute a no academic dismissal policy. You can carry a 0.0 through the fall semester and be welcome back in the spring. 3. Ruin housing. They enroll more students than they had rooms for, resulting in triples instead of doubles, converted lounges to barrack-style rooms, and even put students up in local motels until they could find rooms for them. Parents are not made aware of this until move-in day. 4. Refused to expel students guilty of criminal behavior, at least until after the deadline where students would be eligible for refunds. 5. Cut the resources of their campus police and security departments so their ability to actually investigate criminal behavior is limited. 6. Actively hampered criminal investigations so that word doesn't get around that there are safety concerns associated with overcrowding and shit enrollment standards. 7. Fire experienced department heads who can properly serve students and replace them with people they can pay lower salaries to. 8. Cut support services budgets and freeze employment lines, resulting in manpower shortages in the departments meant to support students, and more. Everything college administrations are doing is designed to pull a dollar through the door and keep it there, even at the expense of the security and well-being of the students they bring in. I'd say sales, such as call centers and cold calling. Nothing worse than being told to hit KPIs and targets just to sell people shite they don't want, sometimes forcefully, under the threat of losing your job. Been there, never doing it again, no matter how desperate. Such an unethical practice when you think about it. True. I worked in a T-Mobile call center about 12 years ago. People were calling in to try to reduce their monthly bill, but we were required to try make a sell on each and every call. Of course I can remove some of these extra add-ons. Say, would you be interested in a monthly subscription for cute ringtones? Oh, and every service that customers had us remove counted against the daily quota we were required to hit. Real modeling, not being influencer lol. I dated a model a few years ago. Her agency put her up in an apartment in NYC. She had a pretty good run, but after a year or so they chewed her up and spit her out. Her look was getting old and they got their use out of her. She ended up back home with nothing to show for it. That's when I met her. We were dating for about a month when she asked if I knew how she could get some painkillers. I was pretty shocked and didn't know why she would be asking me. Apparently while modeling, of course eating was highly frowned upon. She and many others replaced eating with some addiction, alcohol, drugs, etc. She would get the occasional layout in a magazine, but she said most of her time was spent fighting off advances from slime balls in the industry. The next time I saw her was when I visited her in the hospital. She was having severe problems with opioid withdrawal. I hope she's doing well these days. Rehab for drugs and alcohol. I was just talking about this with a friend of mine. Her family member desperately needs residential treatment for alcoholism. The rehabs that take her, public, insurance have long wait lists and won't let people smoke cigarettes, so it's an uphill battle to get someone into one of those and or to convince them to go. Trying to kick more than one addiction at once is extremely rough. She started looking for other options. The cheapest she could find in our area was $25,000 a month. Most expensive was $85,000 a month. For a 3-month treatment course. So now she has her very high risk, volatile family member crashing on her couch while they try to figure out a way to get them into the care they desperately need. Music industry is hell itself. I've been in it for years as a musician and I gotta say you're very, very correct. As an opening act we will play sold out shows of 1,000 or more people. The headliner gets their asking price and each opening band will be paid $100 to $150 for the whole band. The venue keeps the rest. On top of that, if it's a Live Nation show they take 30% of your merch sales too. Musicians struggle and starve while industry people get rich. C'est la vie. In my country, window cleaners and roof builders. They are run like mob organizations. If anyone would be stupid enough to start a window cleaning or roofing business, they can count on actual bombs, arson, intimidation and violence. The businesses that run the show have their own turfs and trespassing will result in getting a bomb in your mailbox. It's not even a joke. Article in Dutch of the past week. Car dealerships/auto groups. It's a lot to explain, but it's deeper than having to talk to the manager for that sweet low price. Former car mechanic here. Odds are high that your local big brand name dealership workshop is way shadier than your local back alley independent workshop run by some fat sweaty guy called Bubba. Cruise lines. Man overboard tech exists that would drastically reduce the number of lives lost at sea, but it comes at a cost. The large cruise line I worked at wouldn't even consider it unless a competitor did it first. It will never be implemented. Came here looking for this. I worked on cruise ships for years, in one of the actually decent paying positions, and witnessed abused, overworked, criminally low paid foreign crew members slave away for years. I always felt bad. They work 12-hour every day for 9 months. There are no days off, just several hours off for crew on ships. They use plausible deniability and fudged numbers and systems to reduce liability and immediately disembark anyone who resists their ways. I was a specialty entertainment contractor, so I never had that treatment, but I always could feel the struggle in their eyes and their disdain for me. The art world, by which I mean the high-end institutional gallery art world. Gagosian, Mary Boone, etc. I grew up in that world, and the amount of shitty exploitation that exists at every level would astonish you. I could write a book. My advice to any young artist would be to make art for yourself first, and to not chase mainstream success. It's not worth it. I agree. If anything, it's much more fulfilling to make art for yourself as a fun hobby. A lot of these big art pieces are mainly traded around by rich people just so they can claim tax deductions. Shipping industry, along with many different commodities. Oh, you got a vessel to take your purchased cargo from some third world shithole? Gotta bribe the port staff or your vessel gets delayed indefinitely. Or the port staff simply siphons your bunker fuel while docked and sells it back to you lamau. You sold a cargo basis certain specifications with a lab doing independent testing upon discharge to determine the exact specs for payment settlement? Guess who's bribing that lab? For the US market, there are many additives that are prohibited from being added to gasoline to improve its octane rating as they are deemed too polluting to the environment. But many US gasoline blenders buy large volumes of them anyway. Why? For selling into the Latin American market. Wife worked in HR at a payday loan company years ago. The stories she heard from the collections department nearly broke her, and she changed her entire career as a result. The collections department was basically trained to talk people into payment plans they would never get out of. They had a way of explaining it that made it sound like they'd pay off the loan in a few years, but it was actually set up to grow. So they would owe even more at the end of the cycle even though they're making every payment. They fucked up so many people's lives who were already in a tough situation to begin with. Fuck that company. The video game industry. All you see as a consumer is a fun game, some big publishers and perhaps a few interviews with devs telling you how proud they are of Element XY or the game in general. Reality is that most of those projects live off constant pressure on the devs, and a lot of it. The publisher sets a date, there are millions of dollars going into it, including investments by stakeholders who want to be satisfied. Most of the times those release dates are unrealistic to say the least. This leads to a ton of pressure on the devs, working way over time and still not being able to really put out the work that would have to be done in order to put out a complete game in the end. That's also one of the reasons why so many games nowadays release unfinished or full of bugs. They're pushing the game out before it's finished due to unrealistic release dates set to satisfy investors. If the game is still a success, devs go right back to work with new contracts. If it flops, the work on that game gets dropped and you only had to pay like half of the work done by the devs because you released the game half-baked. My buddy built a game studio with a publisher and everything was good for the first 18 months or so. At some point, the publisher started acting hostile and demanded that he move the release date of his game up by 9 months. He said no and refused to negotiate. After all, the game wasn't done. They simply dropped him and refused to continue fulfilling their end of the contract. They told him the contract was void and they were going to sue him for all of the money they had paid thus far. As the contract was now considered terminated, he self-published via Steam Early Access and did some social media marketing. The early access sales allowed him to continue making payroll long enough to finish the game, do some real marketing, and allowed him the funds to sue the publisher for breach of contract. For what it's worth, his game published exactly on the date he specified in the original contract and it was complete. 2 years later, the suit still isn't resolved, but he says the amount of delaying and rescheduling the publisher is doing makes his lawyer confident that the publisher knows he's going to win. Horse racing. I live in Maryland and we have this thing called Preakness. Never knew what it was growing up, just knew it was an event people got plastered at. A friend got me to go 1 year and that was when I found out it was actually horse races, and I think a horse died from exhaustion. Started looking into it and it's a bunch of crazy stuff. Literally roiding up race horses, practically putting coked up dwarves on them to ride them to put the least amount of weight on the horse to increase speed potential. Shocked to not see the fitness industry amongst the top. Everyone assumes that since fitness equals healthy, then anything in the fitness industry must have the client's best interests in mind. Fuck no. Fitness marketing might be some of the most predatory marketing known. It specifically targets people's guilt and low self-esteem to get them to participate in challenges or memberships that are extremely damaging and counterproductive towards their overall physical and mental health. People are constantly guilted by calories and not going to the gym to work out. It destroys people's mental health and makes it so that people don't feel good about eating food, feel uncomfortable in swimming suits, or constantly try to hide their bellies because they're ashamed of themselves. Terrible industry. Milk industry. Cows, like other mammals, only produce milk after getting pregnant. The optimal method for getting milk from them is therefore to artificially impregnate them with metal rods as often as possible, then to take the baby immediately after birth and kill it so it doesn't steal our milk. Once the mother's milk production is below quota, her throat is slit. I recommend you can watch the short video Dairy is Scary by Aaron Janus. Edit, you all can downvote me, but I've seen it myself. It keeps me up at night. I half agree. Any industry involving animals is awful. However, among all of them, milk and dairy is one of the most responsible and soft with their animals. Basically, milk cows are the only ones that are profitable after puberty, so they get to live past their teenage years, usually 4 years for milk cows in standard farms, more and more extensive systems or in a cheese-oriented farm. That is a lot more than meat cows or pigs. In addition, milk exploitations have a high correlation between welfare and production, partially because mistreatment takes a high toll the older the animal is. Better floor quality, enough space, adequate places to rest and freedom of movement lead to more milk, more protein and fat, and less chances of disease. Of course, you can point many horrible and cruel issues within the industry. And most likely, you will be right. I agree with you, it's far from good. But every problem there is, other animal industries have it far, far worse.